excited to present an awesome panel coming up for you talking about leveraging AI and other advanced tools to expedite and enhance new processes, improving interdepartmental collaboration for a cohesive and strategic business roadmap, and then redefining the paradigms of innovation in the IT sector as you cultivate a creative culture. Say that 3 times fast. So with that being said, our panel's coming up.
Yep, we're going to welcome to the stage Ken Ingle, Chief Officer of Information Systems at Rowan-Cabarrus Community College, Matt Martin, Cybersecurity Executive, ex-Fortune 500, John Pressley, Director of Clean Energy, Digital Strategy and Engineering, Digital Transformation at Duke Energy, and Darrell Thompson, Senior VP of IT and CIO at Coca-Cola, Consolidated, and our moderator, Aaron Bock. Give him a hand.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction. Gentlemen, very excited to moderate this panel. Just to add on to what Steven said and to follow William's amazing opening keynote, we're going to be talking about fostering IT innovation within your teams. We've got 4 totally different backgrounds, 4 totally different industries represented here on stage. One thing I wanted to call out before we get started is IT innovation, it's not automatic. It takes a concerted effort. It takes a team effort. It takes stakeholders. It takes buy-in. And everyone in this room is at a different stage, and I talked about that in my opening. That's something that we see a lot is that, one person is here, the next person is here, and then you're somewhere in between across the different processes you're working on. And so what I would say is innovation to you could be very different than what you hear today. So the goal is to get one nugget of something you can take back to your team. So what I'd like to start today, so you heard the titles, you heard the intro of the panelists. John, I'm going to start with you. John, you're at Duke Energy. You have digital transformation in your title. You have the longest title I think I've ever seen. Director of Clean Energy, Digital Strategy and Engineering and Digital Transformation, Duke Energy. There's a lot there. So when we start talking about fostering IT innovation, digital transformation, I guess help everyone understand a little bit about your background and what that means to you. What does that mean to you at Duke Energy, within your teams, et cetera?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't get paid by the length of my title, but it has been a journey. We've been on it since 2016, and digital transformation. We started off with 4 people, and every year we doubled in size, and then we got so big we changed IT's name to digital transformation, and a lot of times it means digital and transformation, right? Oh, we want to build stuff or apply technology, but it sometimes is as easy as process and change management. You have to be willing to go back to first principles. That you hear that a lot lately, but we were doing that back in 2016, 2017, and moving it forward and partnering with the business. Duke is a very old company that has been doing things very safely and reliably for years, and so trying to introduce transformation and doing things different and introducing technology to a very analog system, which is delivering electricity, can be an upward battle, but we were able to accomplish it little by little over the last couple of years, and it's been a great journey.
So we'll come back to you because I have a lot more questions because you mentioned utility, highly regulated. Let's go to Darrell. So Darrell, you guys heard the intro, a small soft drink product named Coke, very well known in the space. Darrell, how do you guys foster innovation? What does that mean to you at Coke for a company that's been around forever?
Sure. So one thing I'll say real quick, a lot like John, soft drink, utility, really, really different. But again, necessities, right? I think they're necessities. But you would think our business is very simple. Putting the best soft drink ever in a bottle and getting it to a shelf. It's very complex. One of the things that we've just been focused on, I think, the last couple of years in the entire Coke system, and I'll say this real quick, we're Coca-Cola Consolidated. We're the largest bottler of soft drink products, Coca-Cola products in U.S. and Canada. We're about 20% of the U.S. We're based in here in Charlotte. We're not the Coca-Cola company, although I feel like I am part of the Coca-Cola company. I'm in Atlanta a lot. But anyway, we've been on a modernization journey, and so this whole thing around change management, process, technology, 33 years ago when I started, every case was touched. Every case you walked into the store, you had a relationship directly with a person. How many cases do you need? What do we need to fill your shelves? Today, in the last 4 to 5 years, everything is automated. Everything is predicted. So just to think of what we've had to do takes a lot of smart minds. And so as a system, we have kind of focused on what are we going to do to turn the needle on a very backbreaking set of work for our frontline teammates. So for us, we've just thrown people into this mix of how we're going to do it different, how we're going to sell different, how we're going to order different. So today, instead of all orders having to walk into the store and figure out what you need, 98% of all of our orders are all predicted. We're actually rolling out something now where everything is actually like Amazon subscription put into a cart. 50% of our revenue, $7 billion of revenue, by the end of next year will go through one e-com platform. The customer will have it all in their hand in their mobile app. So again, we've gone from very brick and mortar, string, duct tape type of organization into the last 4 or 5 years really focused on building capabilities with teams. John mentioned the collaboration with business. This isn't just IT sitting in the room thinking, we got to figure out something fun to do here. They want to do that. We all want to do that. But if you don't have the right collaboration from the businesses, we need to do this better. We need to figure out how to win more with our customers. But we've just seeded that kind of culture with our team. So
Awesome. Let's go to Matt. So Matt, you're coming from a financial background, deputy CISO in your former role. Talk about another highly regulated industry where thinking outside the box is great, but also could be penalized if it's too far outside the box. How do you foster innovation? Where have you seen success in your teams?
Yeah, so similar to what you've already heard, right? Innovation is something we all talk about, we all want, but just enough of it, right? You got to be careful not to completely change everything, because FINRA, SEC, OCC is going to come knock on your door pretty quick. The other part is, coming from financial services, working in banks and wealth management, you're into investors, right? They want to be able to access their money. They want to be able to make trades or whatever. If you do something and break it, that's a big problem, right? So availability is a huge thing for us. So trying to find that balance, and one of the things that I've found, like a tip for you guys, I had an executive years ago teach me this, and it was probably the thing that helped me the most with driving a culture of innovation, and it was establishing guiding principles. And so what that does is it enables the people who work for you and with you to make any decision they want, as long as it aligns to those principles, right? And so example of that might be the customer experience cannot get any worse, right? So you can make any decision you want as long as you don't have a negative impact on customer experience. Or it could be something as simple as our investors' data is more important than our home office corporate data, right? So you're going to prioritize protecting that data over your own. So whenever I've been able to set up those key guiding principles within my group, then I'm able to enable my people to make decisions on their own, which drives that sort of innovative culture and allows us to move faster, because they don't have to wait to come get my permission. If it meets those things, go.
Yep. Yeah, and so I'm going to jump to Ken and kind of jump into the next sort of round, if you will. So I want you to share a little bit about your team at Rowan-Cabarrus Community College, and then also kind of highlight community colleges, education, K through 12, and there's some other folks in the room here from educational institutions typically struggle with budget. Budget's always a constraint. Salaries are not the market rate, et cetera. So you're competing in a hot market for cybersecurity talent and IT talent. How do you innovate? How do you foster that? How do you think outside the box with the limited constraints?
Yeah, I'll go to what you were saying. Culture, I think, is the big thing. Really fostering a culture that encourages innovation and empowers your team to make decisions. And, for us, it's all about that student experience and getting the student from in a lot of cases, a really challenging background through an education program into the workforce. And part of what we do is understanding that in a lot of cases, I can't pay the same salaries that we see in the general IT sector. And so we take a little bit more of that talent that maybe is earlier in their career or still developing some of those skills, and we bring them in and help them build those skills, understanding that we may only keep them a couple of years and then they're going to go to another opportunity, but use that almost as an extension of our education pathway on the academic side, in our IT side. And it really, I think for us, helps make a big difference building that culture of it's okay to innovate, it's okay to learn, it's okay to look to the next thing when that time comes.
Yep. I'm going to throw this as a toss-up for John and for Darrell to start. Before we get into, I guess, newer technology, AI and innovation, et cetera, you all both have, you're both in industries where there's probably a lot of technical debt has been talked about this morning. So whether that's systems, solutions out there, talent, expertise, how do you take someone that's done a job for a long time? How do you get them, either encouraging them to innovate or change their process for the better? How do you coach them? How do you deal with someone on your team that's maybe a little bit apprehensive because they feel like they may lose a job or because they feel like they might be coming outdated?
Jump in there. Something we've done here just in the last, I'd say 12 months at Consolidated is we created some of our, again, they're the top talent, but we know if we didn't kind of incentivize them, here's something new where you can go next, we were going to lose them, to that point where they're going to leave and work for somebody here, possibly in the room. We created more platform technical supervisor roles to where they actually own a group of technologies, not just the one delivery team that they may actually serve on. We've had great success. We've got 7 new what we call technical supervisors. They've got their tech stack underneath. They're building roadmaps again. I love when you say, I think only education has a budget issue.
Well, yeah.
I'm sorry. I fight for dimes, nickels, and pennies every day, as if I'm a utility or education, because we choose to invest in production lines and trucks and things of that nature. We have to. But we've actually enabled some of these teams to build those roadmaps, which we've not done. We've not focused on them. Because when the speaker this morning started talking about technical debt, I sat over here and my stomach started getting a little queasy because, we're sitting on a lot. And part of this purpose was we've got to get a way out of it. And if you don't take the time to deliver it, I recognize this person's value. They can get us out of here. They can build a plan. And we've seen some great work coming out of them now that they're focused.
Yeah, I think there's two sides to the question, and weaving in Ken's problems with operational cost. Everybody has it, right? There's no one without operational cost issues. Do more with less money. And so I have a theory, I've never really been able to practice it, which is before you take away someone's budget, let's innovate the solution, get the technology in, then take away their budget. But usually they just take away the budget and then tell them to adopt software afterwards. But at the end of the day, you have to start small. And so working with your business units to find a way to innovate on something that's going to provide lots of value, whether it's time or money, as well as something that's low risk. And as they build the trust in you and in the technology, you will win them over. On the tech side, there are plenty of people that are still doing whatever product that they grew up on for the last 5, 10, 20 years, and we're asking them to move over to a new technology or learn a new language or move to the cloud. And so we implemented a thing called gigs, right? The gig economy was real cool a couple of years ago. And so we implemented that so that people could spend anywhere from 1 hour a week to 40 hours a week with another team to learn a new skill. Because taking a CBT or an online course might get you something, but doing the real work with an expert or someone who's been there really accelerates, right? Think about being dropped off in a foreign language, like Spain or something. You would learn Spanish a lot faster. You would learn it in weeks as opposed to years, right? I took Spanish for 12 years and I know 70 words.
So you're saying everyone should just go vacation to a country that speaks Spanish?
I think so.
Just live there. Okay.
I love paella.
I'll second that.
Yeah. But no, partner with somebody and learn and do it for real. And they'll both get learnings from it. And they might learn that they don't want to, and they can try something else. And so it's a quick win, quick pivot if you need to.
John, can I ask you a question real quick? Because, you know, I know, Matt, you said this a little bit too about your team's autonomy. They've got an ability to make some decisions in your teams. Since you've changed the whole thing to digital transformations, the team name, do they have the autonomy, though, once they know if they're working for a product owner or a business partner, do they have a little bit of autonomy? Like, we're going to go off and try this. We struggle a little bit because we always we got to have an objective where we're going, you know, before we go off and tinker and, you know, we do things. We always try to have a partner. Do you guys have a little bit of autonomy where these groups can feel empowered to we'll just go do something within certain parameters?
What a great question. And so we use principles. We have the 8 points of light that we call it, where we empower people to be able to think outside the box. I have a saying. It's not one that I like to say out loud a lot, but you know, requirements and standards are nice. We have to prove that they're right, and so we have to be able to have room inside of a project or a budget to allow for innovation and for allowed to question the technology or the process or the customer even sometimes. And so design thinking helps with that. We have a design thinking practice within our group that helps challenge and get those learnings quickly. But even the teams have the autonomy to really be able to push that envelope and question standards and requirements.
So I think Darrell said it earlier. I want to go to Matt for a second because you talked about very specific. You didn't say IT objectives or anything. You said business objectives. Like these are the business parameters that we use. And Darrell said it's important to, you know, you got to have the alignment between IT and business, right? It's kind of a two-part question. How do you actually, you know, I guess advice for how do you actually align with the business? How do you pick the most pressing or prioritized objectives, like you just said, like, hey, customer experience can't get worse? And how do you align to a few of those? And then I guess the other question would be is how do you keep your team on pace and on track with that with so many different things flying in IT right now?
Yeah, so I'll give an example. One of the teams that reported to me at my last role was the business information security officers. And for those that don't know, those are the people who are sort of aligned to the different business units and are the security champions for them. One of the things I required for each of them was they had to have one goal from their business unit that was their goal, right? So they had to go meet with that leader that they were responsible for supporting, have a conversation, figure out which one's the most important, the one they could actually influence. And then that had to become their goal. So throughout the year, not only are they trying to accomplish their security things, but they have to make sure that the business unit can achieve their most important goal at the same time. And what that does is not only is it a way to hold them accountable, but it forces them to learn the business because it's the only way that they can actually support them in achieving that goal. And so that's what I try to do is just try to create that alignment through goals, and then they can cascade it down to their teams, and then you have that alignment. And, you know, other than the normal stuff like meeting with them and you know, making sure you actually pay attention to what they're trying to do and not just, you know, from my perspective, security is great, but it's not the reason why we're there, right? We're just enabling them to be more profitable, and that's where we got to remember those things are more important.
Yeah, and I like what you said. So obviously, big organization, you had a formal structure for reporting with the business. I think a lot of folks in the room may not have that formal structure, and we have a customer that the one thing that they did was they said, you know, hey, every single person on my IT team, I want you to pick each quarter. I want you to pick one person in a different department and go have lunch. Just talk to them about what they do for the business. So that was their way of just getting them introduced to different stakeholders in the business and understand, hey, this is why we do security. This is why we do IT. This is why we do transformation, so that they could understand, like, hey, if we could serve our customer just slightly faster, this is what it does for us and makes our life easier. So I love that. Ken, I'm going to go to you because you talked about, you know, kind of you have creative ways of finding people and fostering through academia. How do you measure success? How do you know when they are innovating? How do you stop when you feel like it's going awry? How do you measure and track goals on this?
Yeah, I think for us, like most organizations, we have the typical metrics of, you know, tickets and project flow and all of those things. But really the core is, how is it impacting our student? Is our student having a more successful experience at the college? Are they more quickly achieving their goal of a degree or a diploma or a certificate? Are they getting placed in the workforce? And it's real easy as an IT group to go, oh, well, we're not frontline. We're not faculty. We're not student services. We're not these other areas that are interacting day to day with students. But in my mind, that's the wrong way to look at it. We're not frontline in that kind of way, except for maybe our help desk, but everything we do can impact that frontline experience. If we improve the teaching experience, then that's going to be better for the student. If we increase access to the tools and reduce friction, then that's going to make the experience better and let that student focus on learning and not on, does my computer work, or do I have the ability to register the way I need to. So it's really about how we see movement in that student experience and the feedback from our students and from our partners throughout the college, as opposed to some generic IT metric that we just look at internally.
Before we go to the next, how do you solicit feedback from the students? Like how do they give you a yes or no or maybe or NPS or? So students are pretty good at giving feedback. If they don't like something, they let us know pretty quick they don't like it, all kinds of ways. But we do things like focus groups. We meet with our student government groups. We talk to faculty and just hear what they're seeing in the classroom. But yeah, students usually are really good at finding a way to give us feedback if they don't like something. Darrell, what about you? So you don't have a student population who's going to come banging on your door. How do you all solicit feedback? And
We've got 16,000 teammates that bang on our door.
that's true, but hopefully they're a little more mature than the students.
The feedback, we go up and down. We've surveyed, we through our service desk, we tried that. Tell us how we did. And that doesn't really work. So we try to, the way our teams are structured. A lot like what Matt said, we have everybody aligned to business vertical. If you're not in security or infrastructure, your delivery teams, you're aligned to either HR, finance, customer commercial, marketing, whatever, the gamut, product supply. And so those teams are expected to know their business. So one of those things are we sit in their staff meetings. We ask for feedback from all levels, from executive leadership team member who reports to the president all the way down to the frontline folks. Last year was the big push. After the pandemic, we pushed everybody back out in the market. We've got about 170 folks on our team here in Charlotte. They're not all physically located in Charlotte, but they're run out of Charlotte. We want them to be embedded in the business, and so we get a lot of face-to-face, because trust me, if it doesn't work, we will get the feedback. At my level, it's funny, I get from our top EVP of customer commercial. You would think he would call me about big stuff, strategy and stuff like that. Anytime he can't get his Outlook to work or MFA or an email to send because the file's too big, that's the kind of stuff that he trusts me to help figure out. But
you look very capable.
Yeah, I can do it. So, or I got people who can, but it's really a lot of face-to-face. Just again, that's part of our culture. So.
I'm going to go to Matt for a second. So, for those that don't know, Matt has been on our podcast. Matt talks a lot about generative AI. I'm going to kind of shift, and I don't want this to be an AI conversation, by the way, just 100% AI, because that's what everything in IT is these days, it feels like. But I do want to address the fact that AI is coming up in every conversation. So you talk a lot about generative AI. I'm going to ask a question we can go through, but how do you pay attention to new tech trends? We'll call it AI for right now. How do you pay attention to that? How do you take that and say, we should be looking at it, we should be implementing it, we should be blank? Or, hey, this is not the right time for us, John. You may have a different perspective because utilities are not typically cutting edge of implementing tech, right? So how do you talk to your team about that and address new technology?
Yeah, so it's a couple different ways. So talking to my team, it's encouraging them to take time out of their weeks to meet with some new vendor as they learn about it, right? If there's a new technology or something, it's okay to take 30 minutes, an hour, go learn something new.
And keep the swag, of course.
That's right. Make sure you get good swag.
Yeah.
Whoever has the best swag gets the hour. Me personally, I try to do that in general, but probably about 2 years ago, I figured out, for me, I got the most enjoyment out of meeting with like private equity, venture capital, startups, and now I'm really heavy into advising in that world. But what that did for me is it allowed me to see things at ideation stage before they actually became companies, right? And so now I can see things, when it shows up in, some tech blog or something. I've known about it for about 2 years usually. And so it's really interesting for me to be able to see things and start to think, okay, well, this is coming. Like, we can't use it right now in a major financial services. They can't support us, but it will be here in 2 or 3 years. How can we start to shape our organization, our policies to be ready for that, right? And so that's how I try to stay involved, and I go to conferences that they put on and meet all the founders and get involved in ideation. And anybody who wants to get in that world, be glad to talk to you about it afterwards. But it's a really rewarding because you can also help them develop really cool products that can actually help us and not just kind of fade away. But also it just helps you stay involved in whatever is coming up new that you're not going to see every day.
John, let's go to you. So I imagine that Duke Energy is not chomping at the bit to put ChatGPT on every system and allow it access. So how do you deal with oncoming technologies? How do you evaluate them, et cetera?
So it's funny, we are very interested in ChatGPT, but to Matt's point, yes to all that. And the venture capital thing is true too. Duke is very involved with the Jules Accelerator, which is utility focused or energy focused technology. So it's small companies trying to work their way in. And so Duke and others will partner with them. And we have our own emerging technology office out at Mount Holly where we test out all kinds of technology, different types of battery chemistries to manage charging. But we saw it coming, right? ChatGPT and large language models, et cetera. And every single consultant, every single vendor showed up saying, yes, we got this. And so we took a page from them in digital transformation, and we came up with a placemat and even a brochure, and we went through all the executives in their staff meetings to talk to them and educate them on what is it and what are places where we can partner with them to do pilots. And at a minimum, at least let us be at the table when you do get the pitch, because some people have a lot greater maturity and some don't. Some care about security, some care about enterprise, some don't. And so let IT at least be at the table, and at a minimum, let's innovate together.
I'm going to go to Darrell and Ken over here. I got a question for you guys, and I'll let both of you guys take a crack at it. So Pareto's principle says 80% of your time, you spend 80% of your time on 20% of the issues and vice versa. If you're familiar with anyone who operates in EOS is Entrepreneur Operating System. Opkalla operates on that. When we create quarterly rocks, 20% of your time is focused on kind of innovation. How do you all balance how much time someone's spending on what would be considered innovative versus kind of running the day-to-day? Maybe you don't look at it that way at all, but I'm just curious how you all balance the time.
Yeah, we're actually going through this right now because we're trying to do our business plan for 24, and we're trying to create a new way to tell the story. So we've got ourselves somewhat upside down. A lot of our teams are doing 80% run the business, 20%, which is marginal to really change the business. Again, innovation is embedded in everybody's group. We have to be always thinking, but a lot of that is the big collaborative stuff that we're doing, across our landscape. But we do give people time, and I would say there's going to be some teams. We've got our enterprise architecture team, much like what you called your emerging technologies. We've got a couple folks that's what their job is to go off and be ahead, of the curve. But the rest of the teams, it's minimal. I hate to say that, they're probably spending less than 5%. On things. We've got a couple young folks, I'll say younger than me. Anybody that's younger than me is young, that are working on all these Python models to understand customer sentiment. It's just really neat to watch the output of what they're doing. And then when they go sit down with a business partner and say, here's what it's not like I went with a specific anything because they didn't know what they were going to find. And when they showed the results to a customer, one of our business partners, that just really drives a lot more right there. So that 5% and that one function or that one group may jump, intermittently it may jump up and spark a little bit more, but it's probably marginal, 5% at best.
I would say for us, I mean, like every organization, we have a lot of operations and things like that, especially with a really limited staff that we're having to focus on. But I think what we maybe try and do different is embed innovation into everything that we do. I mean, at the end of the day, our core business is preparing people for the future workforce. And so we offer programs from, nursing in the medical field to advanced manufacturing to you name it, everything in between. And there's a lot of opportunities that arise from that, just in the need to make sure that what we're offering through those programs is at the cutting edge or ready for the cutting edge. And so it's an opportunity for all of our team members to say, okay, here's this new technology that we see preparing to hit, the nursing field or hit advanced manufacturing or whatever not to just pick those two, but they're two good examples as much as anything. And where are ways that we can get ahead of the curve and work with those programs and program areas to try some new things. I think the other thing that we really do is we try and take the risk out of trying something. So in our organization, we have what we call the gold star system. And it's if you break something, then you get a gold star. And the whole idea behind it, and we'll do celebrations and everything, but it's really to de-emphasize the concern around potentially messing something up because you're trying something new. And we have change management and we scope it so that it's rare that it causes a really big problem, but it encourages our team to feel comfortable to try something. And if it doesn't work out, okay, we learn, we get a good gold star, and we move forward. And that's big.
Can you share, like, maybe go into more detail on that? I'd be curious, just like an example of, like, specifically where someone did, fail, right? And you gave a gold star, and how it was taken by the team.
Yeah, so we had someone on our team. This has been a few years back, that felt really, really confident that they could stand up a new way for our students to be able to authenticate that would really simplify the process a lot. And they came to the team and said, "Hey, I'm really interested in this. I think I can stand it up in like 3 or 4 days." I said, "Great." 3 weeks later. So how's that 3 or 4 days going? 5 weeks later, how's that 3 or 4 days going? And when they did finally stand it up, it did not have the outcome that we intended. And I remember they came by my office and they were really concerned. And oh my gosh, this is broke. Students can't authenticate. And it was a Friday afternoon when they released it, so it wasn't too big of a deal. But I said, "Well, did you do it on purpose?" I said, "Well, no, of course not." I said, "Okay, you didn't do it on purpose." I said, Did you learn?" "Yeah." I said, "Took a little more than 3 days, didn't it?" "Yeah, a little more than 3 days." And everybody laughed. We gave them a gold star. The next Monday, I think we brought in some donuts or something just to learn. But it was really that idea of, hey, it's okay. It's we scope things in a way that, like I said, it's really rare that something even is that expansive that it has an impact. But even in that moment, it didn't have a detriment to our operations or our students. But they learned, I can try something, and I'm not going to get necessarily written up or lose my job because something didn't quite work. And that's a culture that we really want to encourage within the organization.
And I guess last question on that. Have
Sure.
you seen what's been the results since?
Well, for that individual, they've gone on to release some of or be in charge of some of our most innovative projects that we've done, around a completely new system for how our what we call continuing education. It's a internal term, but how students register for that type of program. And holistically within the department, now getting a gold star is almost a point of pride, which maybe isn't fully what we intended with it, but I think it really has helped the culture holistically recognize that it's okay to try things out. And we've seen some really big innovations, especially through the pandemic when we had to make a massive shift in how we supported our students. We moved 92% of our classes online in less than 3 weeks. I really don't think we would have been able to accomplish that if it wasn't for a culture that said, "Hey, it's okay to dig in, and we're going to support you, and we're going to help you out." And it's relatively low risk if you work together.
I just want to say, some of these things, at least how we think about it, it changes based on the season, right? You just mentioned the pandemic. We all had to respond differently, and I think all of the time that we saved not driving to work, or going to the gym or doing whatever. A lot of us were martyrs. I'll just get online and work earlier, and I'll work later. And, I'm at home. We did a lot of great stuff. But just like in the last year when I was explaining where Consolidated sits today, we're constantly, we tell everybody in our business, you're IT. We tell everybody in IT, your business. You have to think as a business mind to be able to support them. Most of our stuff today is being created through business-led IT. Face it, guys. I mean, if you don't partner with them, again, that's where I think the success is. We have to partner and have a joint kind of a roadmap where we want to win together. In the old days at Coke, I had a role as director of strategy, and the role was go out and figure out what the business might like. There's no harder job in trying to look and see stuff and then take it back and try to sell something the business doesn't really want. I mean, I've been there 30-something years. I understand our business. My dad was there 56. I understand the Coke business. And so, but I couldn't sell a damn thing to anybody if I didn't have them along with me as we looked at it. I just realized. So we're in that way. We've always been that way. But the pandemic, we all rallied together. And then we got a sense of fostered innovation across the team. But now we've got two huge objectives that we agreed as a company we're going to be forefront. S4 migration next year for 98% of the U.S. and Canada. I'm the sponsor for the project. So I got to get it. It's got to be right. And we're doing a huge e-com shift. And so our business is like, that's good if we do a little bit of this, but let's help set the priorities together. But they really, at this day and age, it's like if we're off spending time being creative, they're like, hey, but we all agreed we've got to focus. So it is seasonal based on big demands. And so we look to, or at least hope, after we get past about April and May next year, those two big initiatives will be done. And then we'll get back into that cycle of maybe fostering a little bit more innovation. So.
Yeah, and I would say like something that we see at Opkalla is, and this is nothing new. This has nothing to do with some of the new tech, et cetera. We see projects that are brought to us, or someone's asking, and there's projects where it's, hey, I'm curious about, I want to learn about, and we love that, right? We love sharing what we know, talking about the roadmap. When that ask becomes, hey, we want to do this, but then to your point, there's been no conversation with the business. There's clearly no strategy. There's no stakeholder. I mean, it could happen, but it rarely ever works. So, I mean, the cloud was like the big thing for the last 5 to 10 years, getting to the cloud, and COVID kind of pushed that forward. If we hear someone say that now, if there's no reason to do it, then you're never going to get there successfully. And you can't really innovate within that because you don't have the business, their goals in mind. Right? So, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. John, I want to go to you about, we've talked a lot this morning. William in his keynote, Ken just mentioned continuing education. Technology is changing faster than ever, right? So I mentioned if you read a book from 5 years ago, you're basically reading outdated material. How do you, along with innovation, how do you encourage continuing education on your team? How do you check in on that? What do you have them do for continuing education, and how do you set a roadmap forward for them?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with the culture. I think that's what you've heard consistently across the top is if you have the right culture, you're going to have the right capabilities of learning and innovation. But when you think about the people you hire, you need people who are voracious learners and are curious. And voracious learners and curious people are always going to dig in. Like at night, I'm watching YouTube, trying to figure out what's the latest. I'm listening to audiobooks, et cetera. But so does everybody on the team. And when someone finds a book or sees an article or a YouTube, they put it in a chat and get it to everybody. And then we're all working together to understand, is it a new technology or something, a new threat, a new whatever. So we'll read a book together, whatever it might be. It's not the standard playbook of education, although Duke has lots of opportunity for trainings that are specific to the company, but also global topics. And they pay for education. So if you want to go get your master's degree or your college degree, they'll help you with that. So there's a lot of different ways, but I think it's the culture that drives it.
I don't think I'd be a good employee at Duke. My last YouTube search was what happened to Tupac.
Yeah.
So
Mine too.
I definitely wasn't searching for anything educational. By the way, it's a fascinating story. You should read it. Matt, we talked about continuing education. Let's talk about the ever-changing landscape of what we talked about. AI. We talked about automation here. So there's all these different ways to innovate, within the specific process. So I've heard customer experience. Let's automate this to save time. Maybe the question is around what is the expectation of someone on your team to use new technology to innovate? How do you balance using technology for good and innovating with it versus the person, the process, et cetera?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I have never mandated that innovation had to be done with a new tool, right? It can be done with an old tool, right? You can find an old tool that has a new use many, many times. So it's more about encouraging them to look at the problem differently and to think about it rather than saying I have a hammer, everything's a nail, right? It's look at, what is it that we're trying to solve? And that's why I think it's so important to really empower your people because they're the ones actually seeing the issues every day. And they're going to have the right ideas. They're going to look and go, why don't we do it this way or whatever. So I think most innovation probably comes from either existing tools or changing processes. New technology can allow you to think of something differently, right? Like when you start thinking about Gen AI, I think most people look at it as I'm going to go automate this process, right? Because now I have Gen AI. But I think where the real power of something like Gen AI comes is when you let it tell you how to do that completely differently, because it thinks about the world completely differently. So I don't think it's a person necessarily using it to drive innovation. It's more allowing that thing to show you how to innovate. And some of that can be done through, for example, with Gen AI, there's, and I talked about this a little bit on the podcast, right? There's when you think about hallucinations, there's really 3 different kinds, right? There's an hallucination called benign hallucination, where just junk, right? Doesn't mean anything. Then there's the bad ones, which is the ones that make all the headlines, right? When it just makes stuff up and you get yourself in all kind of trouble. But the other side is it can create what I call good hallucinations, where you can ask it different questions to say, I don't know, if you're processing something, you can say, hey, if I process this differently, how could I make this more efficient? And get it to think about it in a different way. And so then it's going to essentially make something up, right? A hallucination, but it's something that can help you if you're open to listening to whatever it comes up with. So I think it's more the people, but you can utilize either new or old technology. It's just depending on whatever solves the problem.
Ken, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's I don't know if I have anything to add to that. Honestly, that's wow. Yeah, I can.
So we have about 3 minutes. I want to leave it open for if there are any questions. Feel free to chime in. Okay. If not, I would like to hear, I guess, as we leave, what are you most excited about as far as innovation goes? It could be a technology. It could be a change in the way we treat IT. What are you most excited about? We'll start with you, Ken. Looking ahead.
Wow, that's a big question. I'm certainly excited about AI and generative AI and the applications within education. I think in education, everybody's worried about how are they going to use it to cheat, and that's certainly something that we have to think about. But I'm much more interested in how can we use it to enhance the learning experience and maybe help students who, students learn in all kinds of different ways, really help customize the learning experience to the students' needs a little bit more effectively than has been possible in the past. So I'm certainly excited about that. And even in things about, one of the challenges we have is making sure that students are getting into the right program and that program is aligned with the workforce need. And so if we can use AI to help us more effectively do that, then I think that's a huge benefit. So that's certainly an area I'm interested in, and just seeing the increase in an interest in partnerships holistically, which is not a specific technology necessarily, but that's something that over the years we've seen really grow a lot, is organizations and people and companies and even competitors want to find ways to collaborate and move forward more, and I think that's exciting.
Darrell?
Yeah, I think, well, I'll be glad when SAP S4 is done. So that's the first thing I'll be excited about. But for me, again, generative AI, we didn't want to make it about this because you guys will talk about it later. It's going to accelerate a lot of what we do. We've done a lot of what I've seen happen in the 30 plus years I've been with our business, and to see what's happened in the last 3 or 4 months and the excitement, specifically in the HR space. My chief HR officer is just so giddy about what she can do, with this, and I think this is common in HR circles. But we've already built our Microsoft OpenAI, putting a plug in for them, but we're trying to protect ourselves and do this. We have so much data, and we're trying to figure out what we can learn, and just we just want to be open to just taking the time. And they got 6,000 people who have Bing Chat for the enterprise. I've got 300 that are on Copilot, early access. We've got our service stood up. And we're hesitant to start building on those use cases because I don't have the staff. Again, this goes back to where I got to fight for budget, and fight for innovation, because we got to run the business every day. But we're trying to build this about how will we do this smart? What will we do the right things that we think will add value? But we always don't want to name here's an outcome we're going to go after. We just want to go learn. But I just think this is an opportunity for us to really accelerate in the next 2 to 3 years. It'll crest probably pretty quickly, and we'll look at the next shiny dime. But for me, that's what I see. So.
Yeah, if you think about where we've been in technology for the last 30, 40 years, we've moved the needle on bringing the internet to a lot of different people across the world and even across the U.S. And everybody's got a computer and a phone, and yet we're still only at 22 million plus coders in the world. And if ChatGPT or whatever can accelerate or make them more productive, imagine if that doubled or quadrupled the capability of everyone or anyone or the coders to generate more technology on behalf of technology. And so the compounding effect is, we're already seeing it, right? Technology is exponentially growing, and over the next 10 years, we should see that trend to continue. And I cannot imagine, right? Autonomous cars is well within our reach. But what's next after that? So there is plenty of money being dumped into technology over the next 10 years. So I am just astounded, and I can't imagine what the next 10 years brings.
Yeah, I'd say for me, there's 2 things. One is everybody's talking about Gen AI and what's going on, but what I think what's still holding Gen AI back from truly transforming everything we know is hallucinations, and that we don't have a good way to detect them, to alert on them, in a real-time fashion. So there's a startup that I'm working with, and we're actively working on trying to build that governance. And so I'm really excited to do that, because I think whether we solve it or somebody else solves it, whenever that happens, it's just going to go crazy, and we'll see some really amazing things. The second thing I'm really probably most excited about is I think most people don't know, I left the corporate world. I'm now doing my own thing, doing consulting. And one thing I really want to give back to is helping nonprofits, small businesses, helping them where they can't really afford a full security stack. And what I see Gen AI, I see that as an ability to democratize that expertise, right? And being able to provide some sort of solution to nonprofits, to small businesses, and be able to really tap into where they can start asking real questions to some sort of chatbot and get real answers, and be able to help them solve real security problems without paying $500-600 an hour to a Big Four consultant. So those are the things I'm really excited about.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you all for being a part of this panel. Everyone give a round of applause.